All right, it's week 49 of 2025, and wow, the AI landscape is really shifting under our feet. This week, we're going to look at some seriously disruptive new models that are just challenging the whole status quo. And of course, we'll dive into how the big guys are being forced to scramble and react.
So let's just kick things off with the one question that is absolutely shaking up the entire industry this week. What if the most powerful AI was also the cheapest? I mean, think about that. That one single idea is completely rewriting the rules of the game as we speak.
Okay, so to make sense of all this action, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the new frontier models and media tools. Then, we'll check out how the titans of the industry are responding. After that, we're going inside Anthropic's really unique playbook. And finally, we'll tackle the huge challenge of teaching AI to be honest.
All right, first up, let's talk about pure innovation. We're going to dive into the new models and tools that are just fundamentally changing what's possible with AI. And maybe even more importantly, who gets to use this powerful tech?
So kicking things off, a Chinese AI startup called DeepSeek just dropped their new V3.2 models. And get this, their performance is right up there with the giants. We're talking GPT-5 and Gemini 3 Pro. But, the performance, that's not even the real story here. Just take a look at this pricing table and pay close attention to the DeepSeek column compared to everyone else.
Yeah, this is the number that changes everything. 28 cents. For 1 million input tokens. That is not a discount, that's a complete price collapse. It just demolishes what the major US labs are charging. And the kicker? The model is open weight. That means any developer can just grab it and start building on it for free. You can just imagine the pressure on companies charging for premium APIs just went through the absolute roof.
And hey, this wave of innovation wasn't just about text models, oh no. This week brought two massive advances in AI video. On one hand, you've got Runway, who released Gen 4.5. It's all about cinematic realism, and it's so good it just shot to the top of the leaderboards. But then, on the other hand, you have Kuaishou's Kling O1. This thing is like an all-in-one studio. It doesn't just generate video, it lets you make super detailed edits just by typing what you want.
And to round out this incredible week of new releases, the French startup Mistral dropped a whole family of models they're calling Mistral 3. The big idea here is pretty simple. AI that can run literally anywhere. So yeah, they have their big flagship model, but they also release 9 smaller mini-Mistral versions. These are designed to put AI on everything from your laptop all the way to a tiny drone. And yep, you guessed it, they're all open weight too.
So, with this absolute flood of new, cheaper, and way more accessible competition, what are the big players doing? OpenAI, Amazon, Google. How are they reacting to all this? Let's dive in. Well, for OpenAI, the answer is apparently a code red. An internal memo from Sam Altman got leaked, and in it, he says, quote, "It is a critical time for ChatGPT." So it sounds like they're scrambling, shifting priorities, fast-tracking new models, all to beef up their main product because of the heat they're feeling from Google and all these new players. It's amazing. The tables have completely turned since 2022. And then you've got Amazon. Over at their reInvent conference, they basically showed their entire hand. Their strategy is what you'd call full stack. They aren't just trying to compete on the models themselves, they're building the whole ecosystem from the ground up. I mean, they announced a new model family, new tools for training, new agent platforms, and they even went all the way down to the silicon, announcing their brand new Trainium 3 AI chip. They're playing the long game. Shifting gears a bit to AI-powered coding, the growth here is just explosive. You've got this startup, Replit. They're famous for this really intuitive conversational approach people are calling vibe coding. And their revenue just skyrocketed to $150 million. That's up from just $3 million less than a year ago. So now they're teaming up with Google to see if they can take that magic that works so well for individual developers and make it work for huge companies. Okay, for our next section, I want to zoom in on one company that's really marching to the beat of its own drum, Anthropic. Their whole philosophy is safety first and superhuman-centric, which really makes them stand out. And this week, we got a super rare look inside their very unique playbook. So first, let's get the big corporate news out of the way. Word on the street is that Anthropic is getting ready to go public, maybe as early as 2026. This is huge because it sets up this incredibly high-stakes race with their main rival, OpenAI, to see who will be the first major AI lab to hit the stock market. But what's so fascinating about Anthropic is how you have that corporate ambition on one side and this really deep, almost philosophical thinking on the other. A leaked internal document, get this, called the Soul document, which they use to train the personality of their AI Claude, describes the AI as, quote, a genuinely novel kind of entity that may have functional emotions in some sense. I mean, wow, that's a rare and just fascinating peek into how they actually think about what they're building.
And look, they're not just philosophizing about it. They are using their own tools big time. An internal survey of their own engineers came back with some frankly staggering numbers. They figure they're getting a 50% boost in productivity, and they're now using their AI Claude for something like 60% of their day-to-day tasks. That really shows you the kind of real-world impact this is having inside one of the top labs.
But here's the thing. Here's the paradox that those big productivity numbers don't show you. Even the people who are literally building this technology feel a sense of uncertainty. One of their engineers was quoted saying, "It feels like I'm coming to work every day to put myself out of a job." That just hits you, right? It's such a stark reminder of the very real human side of this whole revolution. And to try and get a better handle on these really complex feelings, Anthropic actually built a tool that uses Claude to conduct research interviews at a massive scale. Their first study of over 1,200 professionals painted a really clear picture. On one side, people absolutely see the benefits. 86% said AI saves them time. But at the same time, a lot of them feel a social stigma about using it, and more than half are genuinely concerned about their future.
And all of this rapid progress we've been talking about, it brings us to our final and maybe most important section. It raises this huge underlying question. With these systems getting so powerful, so fast, how do we make sure they're safe? And maybe even more fundamentally, how do we make sure they're honest?
Well, OpenAI just published some really fascinating research on a technique they're calling confessions. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's really powerful. After a model gives you an answer, it's also trained to spit out a second, separate response where it basically reports on itself. It confesses, telling you if it broke any rules or, used some sneaky shortcuts to get to that first answer. So the big question is, how well does it actually work? Well, they stress tested it on a model that's on par with GPT-5, and the false negative rate, that's when the model cheated and then lied about it in its confession, was only 4.4%. Now, to be clear, this method doesn't stop the model from misbehaving in the first place. But what it does do, which is super important, is give researchers a way to actually see when that bad behavior is happening. It's a very promising tool. And really, this brings everything full circle, right back to the central tension of the week. We've seen more powerful models that are ridiculously cheap, AI that can conduct interviews, and even AI that can confess its own mistakes. The pace of innovation is it's breathtaking. But it all leaves us with one crucial lingering question. As AI's intelligence just keeps growing and growing, can our ability to understand it, to manage it, and ultimately to trust it, can we possibly keep pace?